Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another Premier League preview live stream. And I'm excited. We've spoken about this a few weeks ago, and I'm like, especially after obviously we had a couple of games postponed, and then obviously the international break. We've had so many games since then, and some people might already be getting tired of it. I'm not. I'm having a great time. I know for the team and for the players, it's probably awful because there's no rest ever. But for us, for me as a fan, I'm a huge fan. And tomorrow we're taking on our manager's former team who haven't won a single game since our now manager, Graham Potter, has left Brighton, which, well, unfortunately football tells its tales. And, if we're honest, it kind of has them beating us written all over it just for, that's how the narrative always goes. So let's hope we can avoid that. But by the way, shout out to Adam in the chat. Also shout out to CFC Zayden. I appreciate you all and everybody else that has been tuning in. Of course, please do subscribe if you haven't already, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this once this has turned into a video, and smash the like button. That will be greatly appreciated. Now, Charlie, I will start with you. Interesting few weeks we've had because the performances weren't that great, especially against Villa, Brentford, and then Man United, in particular the first half an hour against Man United. But the results were okay. Then obviously we go into the Salzburg game and certainly could have been better because we didn't take all our chances, but was a pretty good performance, secured top of the group. So we're kind of in a good position at the moment. At the same time, the performances until Salzburg weren't great. So we're kind of in this middle ground where I'm not really sure what to expect going into games, because at the moment you can't really expect us to lose because we're defensively pretty good, and when we haven't, the goalkeepers usually bailed us out, and we've been okay in front of goal, at least like we usually tend to get our 1 or 2, other than against Man United, obviously. Well, we got 1 as well, but that was a penalty. But how do you feel going into the next Premier League game, and especially because our run of fixtures from now on, even if it's probably more excluding Brighton, it's quite difficult. I mean, obviously we've got Arsenal coming up, we've got Newcastle coming up, we've got Man City in the League Cup coming up, so quite a few difficult games on the horizon. So do you think we'll be able to deal with those nicely, or do you fear that now that some stronger opponents are going to come in or come our way, that our lack of performances will start to cost us more points as well?
It's hard to tell. Obviously, the performances, the results have been good so far. Yeah, you can point to sort of moments in matches here and there which perhaps should have been better or could have been better, but ultimately they weren't. You can't win every game. It's unrealistic to expect that. We're on a good unbeaten run at the moment. But yeah, I think the games that are coming up are arguably tougher than what's preceded them. Yes, the likes of going to Villa Park, going to Brentford, those are difficult games, but those are games that you would expect Chelsea to be picking up wins, picking up points in. The games coming up now, I think, are going to be a real test of kind of the progress we've perhaps made since Potter's come in. I think even Brighton tomorrow, that's going to be a tough one because they're going to be bang up for it. They're still looking for a win. It's Potter coming back. Their fans are going to be more up for it than usual, and the players are going to be bang up for it, still looking for that first win. They'd love to get it over the former manager. So tomorrow is going to be a tricky one to negotiate. But yeah, of course, when you look ahead to Arsenal in the league, that Arsenal game is massive. The Newcastle away, the last game before the World Cup's huge as well. 2 really tricky Premier League matches, obviously with the League Cup trip to City as well. Never easy. Obviously, they'll both be rotated sides. But yeah, look, I think we've obviously discussed it before. I think Potter's done pretty well since he's come in. I don't think we could have expected too much more. Yes, you can sort of pick moments here and there, as I said, but on the whole, I don't really think he could have done that much better than what he has done. But yeah, I think certainly now the run up to the World Cup, these games they're tricky, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he negotiates that and how he goes about kind of dealing with it. Because one thing you could perhaps say is that yes, he's used the bench well and he's changed it well, but the fact that perhaps he's got it wrong from the start on a number of occasions you could maybe think that might be slightly concerning. But again, you might think before the game that's right, and then the game pans out and it's not really turned out that way, and you change it, fine. But yeah, I'd say perhaps that's my maybe only slight concern is that the amount of times you've had to change it early, which would indicate he's got it wrong from the start on a few occasions. But I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And yes, as you say, it's great that the games are coming thick and fast. So I think it's better when you're not losing as well. When you're losing, you're kind of dreading the next game. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see what we can do. But yeah, under no illusions that these games coming up to the World Cup now are much tougher than what's just gone.
Absolutely. No, I do agree. And obviously, as much as people sometimes like to kind of shove that under the rug a little bit, let's not forget the amount of like important players we have out injured, like whether it's Reece James and Kante, Koulibaly, Fofana, like our 130 odd million. No, it's a bit over exaggerating now, but still, our 100 and whatever else million, two centre backs are both out. And Koulibaly, unfortunately, remains out injured. Now, he might be back for Wednesday, although I do hope. Why should he play on Wednesday? We're already guaranteed top. Can we play some youngsters, please? And then bring him back against Arsenal, is it, after Zagreb? Because he wasn't out for that long that he needs the game to find his feet again. I don't think, anyway. Pice, let me get to you, as usual. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. One other, question I haven't really touched upon in that much of a detail. Like I said, of course, we're playing Brighton, Potter's former team. Do you believe that is in any way either an advantage or a disadvantage to us that we have their former manager? Because on the one hand, obviously, Potter will know the Brighton players really, really well. But the Brighton players would also know Potter really, really well. And while he took some of the staff from Brighton to Chelsea, didn't take all of them. So some of the staff that's left there also know Graham Potter really, really well. So do you see it then as a pro or a con, Pice, if you don't mind me asking?
It's a difficult question. I think probably more a pro to us, because I think with Graham Potter, he knows pretty much every player they've got inside out, like you said. And I think, whatever lineup they put out tomorrow, I think he can point to their weak areas. He'll tell the Chelsea players what they want them to exploit in terms of the opposition's game. And I think it's probably a big advantage for us, but I would say it maybe does balance it out, or maybe 60-40 to us overall, because I think they're going to really want to... I don't think the players so much, but I think the fans are going to be very, very... I don't know, everything I've seen on social media leads them being quite hostile, to be honest, because they don't like, Potter leaving for Chelsea, fair enough, but they don't like the fact that, we're essentially dismantled their whole backroom team. We dismantled, or we're going to dismantle now their, recruitment team and get the Paul Win Stanley guys. So they're not liking it, but who knows what that sort of translate into, the match-going fans. I don't know, really. But I'd say it's more of an advantage for us, although I am slightly worried about what you said. They haven't won. All of a sudden, Potter comes back. That's the game they win. That would just be typical Chelsea, typical just everything, really.
Just typical football, yeah.
Yeah, just typical football. So I guess that's the one thing I am worried about in a sense, yeah.
Fair play, fair play. Now, HM in the chat made the comment here, and I'm not necessarily sure whether I agree, but I think it's enough of an argument to at least discuss briefly. So, Charlie, he says, why don't you guys call out Bowley for sacking the medical team and suddenly we have our entire defense injured? Because obviously he is to some extent right. We did release our head physio and we did release our head of medical department, whatever they were called. I don't remember their names. I do apologize. Now, I think you have to hold your horse a little bit, because now Fofana literally got injured on the pitch. That has nothing to do with the medical team. Yes, you know what I mean? Reece James got injured on the pitch. That has nothing to do with the medical team. Now, Koulibaly did feel it towards the end of the Brentford game. Maybe one could argue he felt it. He could have taken him off. But did he even tell the staff that he was feeling it? Or did he only tell them when he came off, when the game was done? By the way, my knee's a bit sore, blah, blah. So I'm not really sure whether you can have a directly associate those two things to each other. But I do personally find it a bit strange that we have released like senior part of the medical staff and not directly, at least publicly, replace them. Now, I know we got this, I think it's a baseball guy involved who is somewhat overseeing or taking a look at, how the medical structure works, but no one's been replaced yet, unless I'm mistaken. But, Charlie, Pice can correct us then, but Charlie, for now, your opinion, do you think that is at all connected? Do you think that is at all worth calling Bowley out for, or do you think it's just an unfortunate set of circumstances? Because, last season, we also had our entire defense injured. So
no, I just think it's just a little bit coincidental in terms of just kind of unfortunate timing. He's obviously doesn't like or has not been impressed with the medical staff or thinks it can be improved upon. So he's got rid of them. Fine, not a problem with that at all. You fully expect that sort of thing to happen when new people come in. They're going to bring their own people in or people that they trust more or know better. That's fine. I do agree it is slightly odd to, particularly when you're removing senior people in their positions and their departments and then seemingly not replacing them or not having any replacements lined up. Obviously, we don't know that. I haven't really come across anything publicly that would say that they have been replaced. So that's maybe a bit strange. But again, you know, you want to get the best people in class. That's what Bowley's always said all along. So sometimes you maybe have to wait a little bit longer. But as I say, it's not like they've sort of suffered injuries doing stuff with the medical team. It's not like they've been rehabbing and then they've set some rehab for them and they've got injured from doing that. It's injuries that have been picked up on the pitch. So I think it's very difficult to correlate like the medical team with the injuries that have happened. I don't think there's any way of proving that the medical team were at fault for that. You know, you can argue certain things they would be at fault for example, not bringing a player off when they're clearly not fit to carry on, or sending them back earlier than what they're ready to go back for. But yeah, I don't think you can blame the medical team for what's happened right now. I think it's just a unfortunate coincidence that, you know, they've been removed and then suddenly we've picked up a few injuries.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And I mean, obviously, N'Golo Kante could potentially be looked at in terms of he had obviously that injury setback, so maybe was something done wrong there. But we don't know that for sure. And it's easy for us to now speculate and throw certain people under the bus. But like you said, I do agree. I do find it a bit odd that, you know, we haven't replaced those people because, you know, changing people at board level is obviously will have an impact. But while you're not trying to do board type of things, you know, you're not trying to change, I don't know, things where you need the board involved, that's okay. You know, you can take your time for that and find the right people. But medical staff is needed every day. So I do find that a bit odd that it hasn't been replaced. Pice, number one, do you find that a bit odd? And number two, I assume you agree with myself and Charlie, but potentially you don't. Do you at all see that a reason to call out Bowley for sacking the medical team and all of a sudden we have all these injuries?
It's definitely a question to ask, but I think even with... I mean, let's not get it twisted. It was, I mean, he's sacking the medical team. There was one of them that left, Paco Biosca. He was the longest serving. It's not like he's removed 4 or 5. There's obviously still a deep medical team at Chelsea. So one of them's left. So the comment is a bit sort of miscued. It's not the whole sacking the medical team. There was one person that left.
Didn't two leave? I thought the physio and the head of medical department left.
Potentially. Maybe I'm wrong. But still,
even
the comment
still, I think
miscued.
your point is still valid. That even if it's two, it's
sacking
not
the medical team. He's saying like we haven't got a medical team. We have got a medical team. So yeah, the comment's slightly out of context, but I do agree. It is a bit weird that we haven't replaced them. But at the same time, if you want the best in class, not going to come overnight, are they? So yeah, and even with the guys that obviously have left, it's not like they're massive misses. I mean, look at our injury record the previous seasons. So I don't know. I don't really think we should call out Bowley for that at all.
I agree, mate. Now, obviously, a few people in the chat are talking about the Barcelona situation, which is obviously quite funny. Down at the Champions League, they're now even more financial trouble than they were in already. So all those levers, you know, didn't really benefit them at all. Now, I do feel a little bit bad for Jules Koundé because obviously there was this post that made the rounds, which was a fake post where he's like, I nearly joined these guys when we lost to Zagreb, which wasn't a real post, but a lot of people believe that was a real post, so he's getting slagged off real hard. Which obviously I don't like him for the whole thing that happened, but you know, he didn't actually make that post up. But it is quite funny that Darren Ahmad, I do find it entertaining, and I do also find it entertaining that Xavi Hernandez, a man who plays Marcos Alonso at centre-back, thinks that the La Liga is as good as the Premier League, which is, you playing Marcos Alonso at centre-back probably shows why it isn't, because no manager in the Premier League would ever come up with a stupid idea like that. But anyway, one quick little topic that I would like to talk about before we get into talking about this 3-3-3-1 formation, which obviously is essentially a 3-5-2, but the way we deployed it in attack was very interesting. I found a very interesting thread about it on Twitter, which I thought we'd go through and kind of discuss what we think of that and whether that could be a thing that we do more often, or whether you guys think that's going to be a more of a one-off thing against teams like Salzburg where certain more drastic measures are required because they're a bit of an unusual team, shall we say. But the topic that I want to discuss before is kind of who's been the surprise of the season for us so far. I think there's a few candidates that one could certainly mention because we expected a lot from a lot of players at the start of the season. Some of them delivered, some of them have not. Some of them have kind of been just a bit meh. And I'd like to talk about it. Now, I throw 3 names forward. If you guys would like to add somebody else, please do. But I'll start with, and not necessarily deciding between those yet. I'm just throwing out candidates, basically. I thought that with Trevor Chalobah the last 2 weeks, ever since Fofana got injured, has been mighty impressive. I also think Conor Gallagher, in the grand scheme of things, has been more and more impressive the more games he's getting to play. And also been a very, very useful asset. Now that we're missing Kante, having that different player, even though he's not like Kante in terms of, in general, he's still, in terms of that energy, he's one of the very few people that can replicate the kind of energy that Kante gives us in midfield. And then I think one that should also be mentioned, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone agrees, but Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I think, should be mentioned as well. Because at the start of the season, none of us really, there was a lot of people saying, he should maybe leave, or all he is a backup right wing-back option. And for the most part of the season, he's been one of the first names on the team sheet, even in midfield. Even when Thomas Tuchel was still here, he was one of our best players playing in either right wing-back or right attacking mid position where we switch formations and stuff. So I think those three are fair shouts. Price, I'll go with you first. Number one, is there another name that you would like to throw forward? And otherwise, which one of those three do you think has been the surprise of the season or the most impressive player of the season? Ice Cold Beverage in the chat mentioned Kepa. Actually, was a fair one.
Why do you have to say that before I said it? Oh my days!
I'm sorry that
I thought I was gonna get I thought I'd made you miss out on someone, but yeah, no, I think it's got to be Kepa and then Gallagher, to be honest, because I think with Chalobah and Ruben, we've seen what they can do in consistent periods before. So I don't really it's not really a surprise for me that either of them are playing really well, but it's a surprise for me that Kepa's playing really well and actually holding down his number one spot. And it's a surprise to me that Gallagher's, again, kind of just, I guess in a sense, proved me wrong and is getting more minutes than I thought he should have. And he's doing quite well with them. So, Gallagher, I wasn't sure whether, he needed one more loan, if he was ready to step up, or maybe we should even just use the high price tag that he's got on him because of his potential to maybe just cash in and buy someone else and make a bit of money like we have done before. But I think with Kepa and Gallagher, those are my top two so far. Obviously, there's a long way in the season to go yet, and, a surprise could come up. Someone who's playing, average could then turn really, really good over the course of this season. But for me, it's Kepa, then Gallagher, because I think Chalobah and Ruben, I'm just not really surprised, to be honest, because I already knew they were good enough anyway.
Fair play. Charlie, on your end then, any rogue shouts that you would throw in there? And if not, maybe pick between those two. I don't know, maybe the only one you could potentially throw in there is maybe Broha, but he hasn't really played enough to, in my opinion, be given that title, quite frankly. So that's why I think the four names we mentioned are probably the biggest shouts. But what about you, mate?
No, to be fair, I think Chalobah has been outstanding, but as Pi said, it's not like it's a surprise and he's appeared from nowhere. We've seen that last season before. We know what he can do. Yes, he's improved this season for sure, but it's not come as a shock that he's playing so well, because we know that was in the locker and he's just kind of making a natural progression, and it's been impressive, but it's not like a surprise. I think if we're talking about surprises, yes, I've been very impressed with Conor Gallagher. Since obviously Tuchel's departed and he's playing higher up the pitch, the energy he brings, the way he influences a game, he's having much more effect on games now. I think it could be a bit of a breakthrough season for him. But I'd probably go with Kepa on a surprise element, because basically none of us, no Chelsea fans, would have said that, come October in this season, that Kepa would be the number one. So I think that's kind of for me, that's sort of the surprise in terms of that and how well he's played as well. We know he's a good goalkeeper and he's demonstrated that at times in his Chelsea career, but to play to the level he's currently playing at in the moment, I don't think it's outrageous to say that he's playing as good as any goalkeeper in this league right now.
He has by far, I don't think it's a little bit, by far the highest save percentage in the Premier League. So yeah,
I don't think it's an outrageous thing to say that he's probably playing as the best keeper in the Premier League, or like he's right up there at this current point in time. So I'd go with him as the kind of the biggest surprise, because it was kind of something that none of us expected.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair point. The Kepa one. By the way, shout out Clutch in the chat. I hope you're well, bro. Kepa, to me, while I with what you just said at the very end there, Charlie, I think in terms of, did any of us expect him to be number one goalkeeper by the time we get to October? Absolutely not. I agree with that 1,000,000%. But that's more because I never expected Mendy to be dropped. And if Thomas Tuchel had stayed, I'm also pretty sure that would have never happened, if I'm being perfectly honest. I won't. For me, it's Gallagher, just because while I agree that Kepa's been surprisingly good, when I think back to when the African Cup of Nations took place, and Kepa obviously had to fill in for Mendy for a good month or whatever it was, he was very good in that period, and he never really made any mistakes. He maybe wasn't as good and confident as he is now, but that was also the whole team. Like, we were really, like, even though it was maybe before we started to struggle real bad towards the end of the season, it was still not like perfect anymore. We were starting to get into those rumbling situations under Thomas Tuchel. Of course, we didn't still won the Club World Cup, but yeah, so I still saw that there was always a good goalkeeper in him, maybe a little bit more than some other fans. I always thought he was a bit harshly done by. it's difficult because whenever we concede stupid long shot goals, like obviously in that FA Cup final against Leicester, I'm like, yeah, okay, that shouldn't happen. But I feel like what people do, or shouldn't happen, but it's not ideal that that happens because he's not that tall. But what I always feel that people almost forget to mention a little bit is like, don't let the guy shoot, man. Like, Kepa isn't the only player on the pitch. Like, and people point it out as if Kepa is only ever the only guy that can do anything about goals. I'm like, yeah, he should do better on that, or it would be nice if he was tall and therefore could save those. But there's also there's a reason why not that many long shot goals go in, right? And it's not always because the goalie saved them. It's often because you don't let the opponent shoot. So, I think that comes into it a little bit as well. So I'll go with Gallagher, but I think Kepa is more than a fair shot. Let me see what does it say in the private chat here. He didn't face as many shots. He didn't face as many shots as who? Pice, sorry?
So, when you was mentioning that period where Mendy was in AFCON, obviously our defence for me was a lot more solid than it is now. So I didn't remember him having to. There was a lot of games where we said, "Oh yeah, it was good," but if you look at his statistics at the moment, I think he's faced some of the most shots in the Premier League, which is actually not good on our end because it means we need to reduce the amount of shots he's actually having to face because that means you're defending better. But yeah, for me that period, he was just, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's the best to go off in my opinion, but.
I do hear what you're saying with that, absolutely. And he didn't have that crazy stand-up performance simply because it wasn't required of him. And then the few goals he did concede in that period, he couldn't really do that much about, if we're being honest. So I see your point, but I still saw a goalkeeper in there that if he played, I wouldn't be terrified of him playing. And that's why I wouldn't call it the biggest surprise. At the same time, I was also may have a little bit more faith in Gallagher than maybe you did, Price, but yeah, I mean, on Ruben and Chalobah, I just agree with both of your explanations. And yeah, I don't know. I just didn't expect Gallagher to play this much, and when he plays, play this well. So, while I didn't expect Kepa to play this much, but when he does play, I would expect him to play well. Not as well as Villa, but that is a crazy one, odd one out a little bit. Even though he's obviously been very good against Brentford and United as well. But yeah, now what I would like to talk about, I hinted at it already. Let's get through a little bit of tactical analysis of that Salzburg game, because a 3-3-3-1 formation. Now, I didn't even know that was a real formation. I mean, it isn't a real formation. It's a formation that we play on the ball. You can see it here. Shout out to Seun. Sorry if I butchered your name. Obviously, check him out on Twitter. If we're going to use his content, might have to obviously give him a plug. So please do follow him if you're interested. I'm not actually, if I'm honest, not sure if he does many tactical analysis threads.
He does them all the time.
I personally found quite interesting. Now, Chelsea lined up in a 3-3-3-1 formation. The same formation Potter used against Salzburg in a reverse fixture at home with wing-backs. This time, completely wingers by trade, because obviously in that game against Salzburg at home, Sterling was on the one side, but Reece James was on the other. While in this case, because we have no Reece James at the moment, unfortunately, Sterling and Pulisic played in those wing-backs role. And as he says here, played really high in the build-up to stretch out Salzburg's 4-3-1-2, as Potter pointed out. Now, just quickly, I'll get this back off screen and show you the lineup screen, just so we can visualize that a little bit, so we can actually, first of all, see whether we're in agreement, but also, I think it's a little bit easier to visualize this way. So basically, and again, obviously, this is on the ball. When it was off the ball, obviously, things dropped a little bit deeper. But essentially, we played kind of something like this. Now, was Havertz a full 10? Obviously not. It was, you could even, if you want to, call it a 3-3-4, right? Where Havertz is kind of with Aubameyang. But as you will see in part of this spread, Havertz drops deep to kind of create a midfield diamond a little bit. So that's why they went for this 3-3-3-1 thing. What I found very interesting, and one thing that will be highlighted in that thread in a second as well, was that on a number of occasions, because the wing-backs played so high, it wasn't actually the wing-backs that did the wide defensive job all the time. It was often the two centre mids that then dropped into these areas, almost filling that role, while then these guys dropped here, because we were incredibly fluid. Now, will we be like that every game? Fluidity, I think that is part of Graham Potter's, identity. But I don't think it will be this formation all the time. But before we get into more detail, I will ask you, and I'll start with you, Charlie. I like a lot about this. Now, obviously, to call it 3-3-3-1, whether we want to be fancy, just call it 3-5-2 if you want. But the biggest fan of things that I've seen so far is that we're fluid in who plays where. We switch things around very often. Like whether it's Aubameyang drifts to the side, or say the more obvious example, which will be mentioned in the thread as well, Pulisic shifts inside and then Gallagher filled that role. And if Aubameyang dropped, went to a side, Havertz filled that role. While I remember so many times under Thomas Tuchel, and also previous managers, I don't want to just throw Tuchel under the bus like this, that was when it was Havertz up top, and then he moved into wide areas, and then just no one kind of replaced his position in the box. And we ended up crossing the ball, and there was no one in the box other than, I don't know, like a Mount trying to fill in, but we didn't still have it occupied with enough numbers. And what I like at the moment is that when someone leaves their position, someone else fills that position. And I think it's a very enjoyable fluidity of a team. Would you agree with that, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it, the setup for that game. As you say, I don't know if it's going to be, if it was very much specific to Salzburg, because the only times we've seen it is both times against them. So it's tricky to tell whether it would transfer well to the Premier League. I'm sure maybe in certain games it might do, but in other games it probably doesn't. I do agree. I think it gives us a lot more kind of solidity in the middle of the park, particularly given the fact that we've got, you know, injury problems there, and we can't rotate as much in that area. By playing three there, it means that you can then include the likes of Gallagher and Mason Mount as well. So you've got a few more options to rotate in the middle of the park, rather than when you've got the pivot, you've literally got Jorginho, Kovacic, Ruben, and you're just rotating between the three of them pretty much the whole time. It means Zakaria is not going to get a look in. And Chukwuemeka probably not really his best position, plus probably not ready to start those sorts of games. So in terms of rotation as well, because it enables us to bring kind of the more offensive-minded Gallagher and Mount into that conversation, it gives you more room to switch things up, which I think is a plus as well. And yeah, it just looks perhaps a little bit better balanced as well. The only issue I would have, though, is using it in the Premier League, is I don't think you'd be able to get away with playing with only three defenders. You basically essentially play. I know it's like you're basically playing with three centre backs, and that's it. You're not playing with any fullbacks really. You know, they're all attacking players. So I don't know. That
applies to every Premier League team, because I would say Salzburg are better than most Premier League teams. Not all of them.
No, but what I mean is, I just think like if you tried that in a big game, you're going to be in trouble, because you're going to I just don't. If we tried it and it works, fair play. But I can't see how against better teams in the top 8, top 6, top 8 of the Premier League, how that's going to work by sacrificing essentially 2 wing backs to play wingers. I just can't see how that would work. I think in certain circumstances it can, and I liked what it offered us. I think we looked good in it and it was fluid, but I think we've been very fluid under Graham Potter, switching between multiple systems, but when we're attacking, when we're defending. I do like this. We saw a 3-5-2 under Thomas Tuchel a couple of times, and it looks terrible. I don't know if we have the right personnel for it necessarily, but it looks much better. But in terms of rolling it out long term, I'd have issues with the compatibility of using 2 wingers as wing backs. I think you need a couple more. Well, at least one side needs to be someone who is has got defensive capabilities.
I do agree, absolutely, especially against obviously the top sides. And I think a lot of what's interesting about it is, of course, we don't always play the top 6 and the top 8 teams. And as you touched on, we've been very fluid under Graham Potter anyway, in terms of even in-game changes, whether it's changes like against Manchester United when we made a drastic tactical change with the substitution, or whether it's just changing with the very same players that we have on the pitch anyway. But I do think against certain oppositions, especially, obviously, I don't think if Reece James is available, this is something we're going to pick unless with Reece James in the team, although maybe in that case, Reece James might be where Gallagher is most of the game rather than up here. I don't know, right? So this is more something that we've kind of been forced into, I would say, in terms of just not having a lot of wing-backs available. Now, obviously, Chile not being 1,000% fit, Cucurella maybe having, well, if he has deficiencies anyway, it's most certainly in the attacking third. And, obviously, Reece James' injury. So that's probably where it kind of stems from. Again, another thing that will be mentioned in the thread before I take it to you now, Pies. On a couple of occasions during the game, it also dropped to this, with Kovacic kind of dropping in to help Jorginho with the build-up phase. And then it kind of was, well, a little bit like this. I guess you call it in a 3-2-4-1. I don't really know. But it certainly happened like that, where Kovacic wasn't always an 8, certainly dropped in to help with the build-up at times with Jorginho. But still, I find it interesting, and I like interesting things. And I know it almost goes back to a time when, like, with Maurizio Sarri, when he, like, did systems that we haven't really been as used to in the Premier League. And I personally, because I not tactic nerd, it's a bit harsh on myself. I'm not quite your expert on one and nerdy thing side of things, but also first and foremost an understanding of the tactics to that level side of things. But I find interesting formations, interesting systems very intriguing. Pies, what has been?
I just wanted to quickly say, I think the 3 helps Jorginho a lot more as well. He doesn't look as
the 3 in midfield, you mean, or the 3?
Yeah, I think the 3 in the midfield helps him a lot more.
I think the combination of the two, having 3 behind him and the midfield 3, I think that probably gets the best out of Jorginho because
Charlie, is that I know he won man of the match, but is that actually true though? Because I remember at least watching on the TV, I think that he got overrun a lot in that game.
But not
that's
as
because
much.
of Salzburg, and Salzburg overrun everyone.
So is it the mid? Because you guys were saying the midfield 3 was compact, but I didn't think it was compact at all. I think it was a really attacking formation.
Where it was attacking, but
too much.
Like
we were not outmanned in midfield like we were by United, though.
No, he's not getting. Oh, look, people still run past Jorginho. He's still going to get beaten in the transitions, but I think in a 3, it doesn't happen as much as when he's playing in a 2.
Yeah,
it just offers a bit more security.
Obviously, because this happened often, obviously that then actually in moments made Jorginho almost be a little bit alone because these only had to follow, right? So what. I don't think Pies is necessarily wrong. They still ran through our midfield at times, especially at the very beginning of the game. But I will also say this is not a formation that we've played very often. So the beginning of games, it's almost felt like the team had to get a little bit used to what we're actually trying to do here. And that's why the longer the game went on, the better it got. But continue your perspective on it, Pies, other than that you maybe slightly disagree that the midfield gets so much better or that Jorginho is so supported by it. Do you in general like the idea of, number one, like I say, Kovacic and Gallagher shifting out wide to fulfill the wing-back duties at times when just because the other two are so high up the pitch. I enjoy it. What have been your thoughts on it, mate?
To be honest, I'm less interested in this sort of stuff than you guys are, especially you, Laurenz. But for me, just play whatever works for the game, and if it works, you did it right. I'm not the tactical genius here. I think in certain games, like Charlie said, this won't work at all because I think the wing backs, especially in this game, the wing backs were heavily reliant on coming back, and they did their jobs well. To be fair, especially Pulisic, I thought he came back quite a lot, and it left us in more like a 5 at the back when we was defending. So I quite liked that, but yeah, I don't know. I think a big point is what you just said there. The team wasn't really used to it. I think Graham Potter needs to find a formation, and just a way of playing that suits most opponents, and just tweak it for the odd game. Because otherwise, I feel like we might start getting inconsistent results. So yeah, I'd like to see us play a 4 at the back more as well. Because I don't know, some of this fan base were like, "Oh, get Cucurella, he's playing 3 at the back," but Graham Potter's just doing the same thing. So. I don't know.
Doing the same thing, but being much better going forward, which is, I think that's where it came from. We were like, okay, we're seeing the back 3 under Thomas Tuchel. Maybe try a back 4. Maybe that would help us offensively. Obviously, a different manager can interpret the same back 3 differently, and I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. But Tuchel was never going to interpret his own back 3 style differently.
See, I like Graham Potter a lot, but for me, if we're talking about systems and tactics, no one, Pep Guardiola maybe. Other than that, Tuchel's one of the best tacticians. So maybe it's just the players playing really well right now.
Going forward now than we were before.
Yeah, but maybe it's just the players on a bit of a high. Maybe it's not so much Graham Potter. That's all I'm saying.
That may absolutely be the case. Now, another very interesting bit that I've found of the thread as I got it back up on screen, that in the build-up, Chelsea's back 3 occupied the back with Kepa, forming a back 4. In build-up as an extra man to evade pressure, and it worked most times. It gives Chelsea that extra man in the build-up. Obviously, us then basically allowing us to push Chalobah out almost like in a right-back position and Cucurella on the other side, and for him, more natural left-back position anyway. That I find very interesting. I'm not going to ask you guys on every detail of this, but still an interesting way to use the goalkeeper. Now, I'm not sure how often in the game this actually happened for us to make it such a thing that we should be paying attention to all the time, but clearly, as you can see on screen, it happened on a few occasions, and I personally find it interesting. I will not get obviously the videos up because otherwise we'll get copyrighted, so we have to skip over those. But getting to the next kind of tweet of the thread, I suppose. He says Chelsea built up in a 3-3-3-1 shape, three centre backs at the back. Jorginho as the lone pivot. Gallagher and Kepa advanced of him, so they are passing options. Havertz then dropped in just in front of them, forming a diamond in midfield. We saw this midfield against Brentford when Gallagher went off. As you can see here is the diamond with Havertz at the tip of it, Kovacic here, Gallagher over there, and Jorginho at the base. And obviously, if I would highlight this one, you would basically see the same thing. And because what I find interesting about it, Ben Chilwell also said in the second half against Manchester United, or rather from the 36th minute onwards against Man United, we also played the diamond. Now, not in this formation, but we still had a diamond in midfield when we were struggling for midfield control against Man United. So, Pice, do you believe at all that a diamond in midfield, regardless of whether that's done with a back three behind it or whether it's in a full back like it was against Man United, could be like a thing that we go for more often? Because like Charlie said, it kind of allows us to use more players in midfield that in the double pivot formation don't really fit the midfield, especially while we're missing Kante. Kovacic isn't always fit. It kind of allows us more to put like Mount and Gallagher and a few Chukwuemeka. Allows us to put Ruben. Allows us to put a few more players in there. So do you see it as a potential at all that we see this a few more often, Pice, or are you personally not the biggest fan of the diamond?
I think it's interesting because I think in this game specifically, I think we built up a lot faster and just there was a lot more options. I felt it didn't feel as like generic as when we play like a 3-4-3 or something. And it's always kind of the same way of playing. You play it into Jorginho, maybe you attract someone, you play it into cover, you play it out wide. This was a bit more, I don't know, more fancy, I guess. And I think the positions, the players understood it quite well when the game got going. But that's just my only worry. It's like, because there's so little time to train on the training pitch, it's like, how quickly, like, can we start like this and just dismantle teams in the first 30 minutes? That would be nice, wouldn't it, if they all understood the tactics? But I'm not sure that some of these players do. So, yeah, it's definitely
I
going
guess
to be
we'll
a
get to
learning
that at
curve,
some
isn't it?
point, hopefully, just given enough
Oh,
time.
we will, but it probably won't be this season, or it may be later on in the season where, we've got a way of playing that is just suited for most teams and every player just understands their role. But I think now is still a bit of a learning curve. But yeah, he's done pretty well because obviously we're undefeated. So in this game especially, I think just our build-up and link-up play was a lot better. And yeah, obviously, it's interesting with these threads because I guess even though we're doing so well, I guess maybe a Salzburg analyst could say, well, this is how we lined up, and if we did this would nullify what you did. So I guess it's it's good, but I guess it's it's
But I guess
perspective
that's
as
the
well.
job of the manager: find something that the opponent can't nullify or don't know
Exactly,
how to
or
nullify.
maybe they don't expect it. Maybe they didn't expect us to play this way. So
Although we
yeah,
did play the same formation in the first
I was
game.
going to say that we did, but wasn't it? Obviously, James played in like it wasn't
Yeah,
two forwards at wing
yeah,
back, so it was a
that is
bit
very true.
different.
True.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of Premier League, it's interesting. I think against like low block teams who just want to park the bus, I think this could be a very good option because you've got more people in midfield. You've got the wing backs are pretty much forward thinking attackers anyway. It's not like you're using a Cucurella and a
Yeah.
an Aspi or something. So if they get in those positions, you'd expect them to maybe have more chance of scoring in the attacking areas. But again, like Charlie was saying, top 6, top 8 teams, you just got to be careful on transitions, I think.
Absolutely, I do agree. I mean, Charlie, you'd hinted at it a minute ago anyway, in terms of when you mentioned that it allows like Mount and Gallagher and stuff to fill these positions as well. But you, in general, a fan of the diamond, regardless of whether it's with the back three or a back four behind it?
I don't mind it, mate. To be honest, at the end of the day, as long as it works well for the team we're winning, I don't really care what it is. But yeah, no, I think the diamond. I've never been the biggest fan of the diamond necessarily. It's not really like a formation I'd ever go to on, say, FIFA or Football Manager when I'm playing. But it's got a place and it serves a purpose. Then I think why not? But I mean, I always prefer like a flat three in a midfield or whatever. But yeah, I think the diamond has shown that it can work. But yeah, it's just whatever works best for the team. Is what we should be rolling with, really.
Absolutely. No, I do agree with that. For me, it's a case of, I think, because we talk about like, okay, who should play and blah, blah, blah so often. And then obviously we sit there and player ratings and have things up in the formation. And we talk about all these individual performances. And I think having a rough, or at least because I'm personally interested in it, I know Pi said he's personally not as much, maybe you aren't either, Charlie. I think it's just because we talk about, players individually so much. I think it's important that we don't forget that football isn't just about individuals. And, we all know that. But when we obviously do individual player ratings, I think to do player ratings and not lose your mind in terms of being somewhat objective, I think it's important to understand what tactics are deployed, because otherwise I think certain unfair judgments can be given, because certain players have certain instructions and certain roles in the team. And if we then judge them by as if they had a different role, then obviously that's not necessarily a fair comparison. I touched on this earlier already when we had the other lineup thing on screen. Kovacic at times dropped alongside Jorginho to form a kind of 3-2-2-3 formation to create space for Havertz and Gallagher, part of the front two, of the two in front, to assist with the build-up. As you can see here, obviously here's Kovacic next to Jorginho, and then Kai dropped deep to almost form another line between himself and Gallagher. Again, let's skip the little video. And as it mentioned there, Gallagher also drops back at times and wide as a form of temporary wing-back for Kepa to find through his diagonal balls, or Chalobah to find in white spaces. Once he did that, Pulisic saw it as a signal to move into the half space to create passing angles for Chalobah and Gallagher, which again is going back to the thing that I just like. And that's what I meant, let's not let that play. Remember, Pice, you and me had a few disagreements back in the day, I say, it's not that long ago, a few months ago under Thomas Tuchel, where I'm like, I just don't see patterns. I don't see where someone receives the ball and then an automatic thing happens. And that's like with what is touched on there. Gallagher shifts position, and then Pulisic automatically does a certain thing in response to something else that happens. And that's, in my opinion, how you beat teams. Because if you only, it makes you proactive rather than reactive. And if Pulisic only moves once he sees, there might be a pass happening, it's already too late. And that's what I meant by patterns, that if you shift around, especially against defensive teams, how do they try to keep you out? They basically just try to give you no space. But the more you move, the more space you will automatically open up, because the players will follow our players and it will, drag them. And once you start dragging teams, that's where little gaps open up. So that's why I'm a big fan of it from that perspective, even if that doesn't necessarily explain everything. I don't want to go into too much detail because the thread continues on for a little while. And
that's why I never understood why the players weren't moving as much, because you can't sit here and tell me that Tuchel doesn't know how to coach an attacking team. Like, I don't know why it fell apart in the end, because clearly he's proven in the past he can. Like, if someone tells me a manager that has as much experience as Thomas Tuchel can't coach a team going forward, then just deluded. So this is why I'm saying I don't know whether this is just the players playing on a bit of a high, or if it's actually going to last a long time. I hope it does, but this guy here is analysing, how well Potter's doing and stuff. But Tuchel did this at points too. That's why I'm just not as excited personally.
But bro, I know you love Thomas Tuchel, but we're not talking about Thomas Tuchel. It doesn't really matter what.
You brought him up though, so I just said I
brought him up because
you never saw patterns, but we won the Champions League under him, dismantling everyone. So I just don't.
That's all well and good, but it doesn't really matter what happened a year ago. You can also say, we won the Premier League in 2016. That doesn't help us now either. And I know the one thing's closer to now, 2021, than 2016 is. But at the end of the day, both are not now. So I agree that we had certain patterns then, but I think the patterns, it's a bit like with Antonio Conte, where we had patterns and where we had a system that worked so well, the back three, the 3-4-3. And you saw after a while we struggled to break teams down in it, because
exactly. So I don't think right now we should be like how many games have we played? What, 6 or 8 under Graham Potter? It's great. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. But let's see if these threads still exist in 6 months. You know what I mean? That's just what I'm saying. Because teams can figure us out. You know what I mean? We always start well under managers.
But I personally don't think we ever saw this much fluidity under Tuchel. To be honest, I'm not sure if we saw this much positional fluidity under any manager, quite frankly, because Sarri was obviously very structural in his 4-3-3 system, where players didn't really, divert from their main position all too much. Lampard, I guess, but with Lampard, you were never sure, was this purposeful fluidity or was it tactical ineptness? So that's a bit of a tough one. But I think those two things that you just mentioned there, or what you just mentioned there, Pius, in terms of that people are saying Tuchel couldn't coach an attack. I think the one thing doesn't necessarily Like both things can coexist in terms of that we did this under Potter and that we didn't do it under Tuchel, and that doesn't necessarily mean Tuchel couldn't coach an attack, but he attacked it differently, coached it differently, and it didn't quite work for us anymore, at least. That's all we can say. But of course,
do you think the fact that
6 months, 12 months, 18 months, does it still work for Potter? Absolutely.
do you think the fact that like Salzburg pressed us so high and so like they were obviously very attacking in my opinion from this game. Do you think the fact that they did that allowed us just to like the players already like they found their own gaps because of the way they was pressing? Like remember that attack we had when Aubameyang missed the chance, right? Like it was so open, everyone knew what they were doing, but because Salzburg were pressing so much, like the players found their space and their movement. Like I want to see how we do against like I don't know who's the most low block team in the Premier League. I'm trying to think now. I don't know. Like
we always
just
said Burnley, but now they're not here anymore.
yeah, like I just want to see how we do in a game where yeah, like how do we do in a game where you know maybe we struggle for like the first 45 minutes or half an hour. Like, can the players then adapt to the manager's tactics and find these moments of you know space and movements to win the game and open up the opposition, or is it? You know, is it circumstantial just because of the team we're playing? Did this team suit us so well the way we want to play football? Like I'm just trying to balance it out because it's all well and good doing this against Salzburg, but you know, like I think again, like something like this, it would be difficult against Brighton, obviously, because they've got a good manager and obviously like they're good at counter attacking. They've got some quite fast players and stuff, but they're not a defensive team, so I feel like we could build up quite well against them, and we could find a lot of space against them. But against other teams, like especially at Stamford Bridge, it's like, you know, I'm sure we're going to get these games where we're just like, oh, like nothing's working, the players aren't moving, like yeah, that just annoys me because when this Fred comes out here, like I know they can do it, so it's just getting that on a very consistent basis that. Well, then to me, if like that leads to a long-term manager for me, because if he's doing this in, you know, like 6, 7, 8 games, like surely this will only improve. But the players have got to buy into it, and obviously we're going to get new signings, and it's just all got to gel long-term. And I hope it does, because I'm just bored of these guys, you know, sacking the manager and the players getting fed up after 8 or 12 months. Like it's boring, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. Absolutely, I think I have a bit of this whole idea of when playing, you know, good teams or playing against teams where you have a bit more space, but therefore they challenge you like in different ways in terms of their counter-attacking threat is therefore different, and you know, dealing with their press is therefore different, but it allows you more space on the other hand. I think, especially I think it's playing a team against like Salzburg. I think you made a good point in terms of suits us well, but doesn't suit us well because we're now so amazing at this, or because our players suit us so amazingly well. I think why they are a good opponent to play is because, like you said, they're not a defensive team. They are very aggressive. They work a lot. They press hard and everything, but they're still not the very best team in the world. Like in sense of being aggressive, pressing, you know, City do that, Liverpool do that, but obviously City and Liverpool are super good. So why I think this is very useful, and of course you can talk about training, but why I think this is very useful is because having an opponent like this where you have a little bit of space, that's the kind of game where you can instill patterns into players and make them believe that they work. And then when they do it and they execute it, believing in it more and doing something more regularly, repetition is a huge part in training for football. And then you also, the more you can do that, the better you will be and the more successful you will be at trying to deploy it against better opponents where there's less space. And I think that's why playing against a team like Salzburg it's almost like it allows you to improve much more than playing a low block. Because against a low block, it's just, okay, we have no space in the areas where we need space, and we just somehow need to find a way to get through it. That's going to be difficult no matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're City, it doesn't matter whether you're Chelsea, it doesn't matter who the manager is. So it's going
That's what we need to play for, bro. Don't you think? Like when we play these low block teams, we need to attack more, because that was like
the
one thing.
If we play a 3 like this, then it's fine. I mean, that's even more attackers than it is in the 4 theoretically. But
yeah, sure. But like, you know, all those times where even I was critical of Tuchel, like just change it up. Why are you playing 3-4-3 at home against a low block team? And it just wasn't really working, right? So like, I'm interested to see when those moments do happen, or those games where we're just really struggling, like how much Graham Potter goes for it. And I hope he does. I think he will. Like, I think it will turn out fine, because in my head, like especially at Chelsea and just overall, I think, and this is why again I was a bit confused with like our previous manager, because Tuchel was always very attacking at other clubs, and then here he just almost like in the end prioritised the defending. Whereas Graham Potter, I think, instantaneously prioritises how the attack looks. So I think in those games against low box, we might be better just because of his like, I don't know, his philosophy, his like idea of things, maybe.
Yeah. I do hear absolutely, and it is weird. Like, I mean, you and me and whoever else was on streams regularly, we spoke about this so many times with Tuchel, and we never really had an explanation for it. I'm not even sure if Tuchel ever did this on purpose, or if it kind of just somehow happened. Difficult for me. Charlie, obviously myself and Pi spoke a few things now. Anything you would like to add? Because otherwise I would move on to a little quiz before we do, the team for tomorrow.
No, I don't really think so. Like, nothing to add. That's not really been said, to be honest. I just think like things like that aren't sort of a direct comparison. Look at what's different from what was what was happening before. I think it's just an analysis of what's currently happening. And like it's annoying that, I mean, I know Twitter's not the best place to go, but why are people? I'm not saying that we should forget about Thomas Tuchel, never mention his name, but we don't need to mention him after every match. I don't get that, why people on Twitter are needing to mention Thomas Tuchel after every game, or if we don't play well or if we lose a game, Tuchel would have done this, would have done
It's
that.
working on both sides, I think, Charlie, as well.
Yeah,
I've seen that, but I've also seen like, look how well we're playing. Tuchel did this like 5 times in his Chelsea career. It's like it's gonna be a back and forth war, I think, until he goes to the next club.
No, it is. But yeah, it's just like I don't really get it. Like, just enjoy what he did and enjoy what's happening now. There's no need for this constant comparing.
Well, if only Twitter was as simple.
Well,
as
if only it was that simple. Yeah, I know.
See, I think we can still compare, like, okay, what we do now to what we did before without using that as a reason to slag Tuchel off, because it just was what it was. And as Pies mentioned, there was times where it was amazing in our Champions League run in particular. Yeah. And there was times where it wasn't amazing. And now we're just trying to be, ideally, no matter who the manager is, we're just trying to be more amazing more regularly at the end of the day. That's kind of what we're trying to do. I mean, we all know, whether it was on the Thomas Tuchel or the managers before that, on our day, we were always great. The problem was we never got any consistency into it. And if we find ways to allow our attackers to thrive a bit more, I think that will automatically build more consistency into things. Because
no one can disagree with that.
No matter who you're playing against, it allows you to every now and again make a defensive mistake without dropping points. And that's kind of where we went too far away from at the end under Thomas Tuchel. I felt like we were so poor in attack that as soon as we made one mistake, we were in trouble. Because it also felt like the team didn't really believe in themselves always that they could score. And again, I'm not saying this is purely Thomas Tuchel's fault. It was just a combination of Tuchel and the players that didn't find ways to score more goals, whether it's a lack of ability in certain areas and really %, whether it's not getting the best out of players for whatever reasons. But I think it's not necessarily, I don't, at least when I do it, when I say, oh, this is something I didn't see at the Tuchel, I don't mean that in a derogatory way towards Thomas Tuchel. It's just, okay, now we're doing something different, which I in the past spoke about that I would like to see us do. Now we're doing it and it's working. Would it have worked the same under Thomas Tuchel? I don't know, because the whole system, the structure is different, even if it's not sometimes similar, similar players in similar positions.
I do feel more confident now, like if we go a goal behind, that we can get something from a game, or we can still win a game. I feel there's like goals are more.
Down yet?
Yeah, we have went one down to Palace. But I mean, I feel more confident in that respect. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do it every time, but like before under Tuchel, if we went a goal down,
I guess we conceded and equalised against Salzburg and still won.
Yeah. But this is what I mean. Like if we, like previously, I would have had little to no faith in us to win a game after going a goal down or even getting a draw. Now, if we go a goal down, I've got more confidence in us actually getting a result. Whereas, as I said beforehand, that just wasn't happening.
There you go. Now, what's highlighted on the screen now is obviously what we touched on earlier with the two midfielders then dropping into the wing-back positions while the wing-backs or wingers fill the 2-8 positions. So, yeah, it's not too much, and that's basically then the end of the thread, which is about time, I reckon, we get out of here and don't, focus too much on tactical analysis all the time, and actually get into a little quiz, which I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you're all excited for. I certainly always have a good time. Let's see how difficult the questions are today.
Mate, you need to be keeping a leaderboard of who's finishing
it's-
top.
I will be informing Brent Bertrand, maybe like by New Year's or Christmas or whatever. We get like
nah, it's you know what it
maybe
is
he
though.
has time to watch it back or whatever and see how many we got right and stuff. I don't know. We'll see.
No, but
you weren't
it's
here
so
for this, Charlie.
difficult.
Remember, Pice, but we had Lewis on. My guy knew every fucking answer.
Bro, that's what I was saying. It's difficult because we're all sort of just chipping in and being a team in the end, or like
Yeah,
you
true.
might know something. And like Lewis last time, there was a load of questions like around the 2000s. Obviously, I was really young, and he was like,
when
"Yeah,
he
no,
knew,
this,
when
no,
he
this."
knew it all.
Yeah, everything.
Mate, he knew everything. It was crazy.
Fuck's sake.
It was crazy business, honestly. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this up on screen. Either way, in the meantime, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Always massively appreciated. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. So hit the notification bell button as well so you don't miss any future streams. And smash the like button. Why don't you do that? That would be phenomenal. Now, my guy has a huge ass head. That's what I'm taking from this year. But Brighton versus Chelsea. Let's see what the quiz hold for us today. The Sea Goals, all right, pun. Well done. Had a great campaign last season, ending in 9th place. But how many goals did the free-flowing team score in the Premier League last season? I mean, I'm going to be purely guessing. But I know there was a spell of like 7 games or something at some point in the season where they didn't win, it didn't score a lot. So I don't think it's going to be crazy high. How many did we score last season? Like 80 odd, probably 70, 80. So I'm thinking between 54 and 63. I mean, do either of you guys have an inkling what it could be?
I'm gonna go. I'll go 54 just because I think it's Brighton, and I don't know if actually is 63 even that high? Like I'm trying to think of.
I think 63. What's that
Yeah,
like?
that
That's still averaging less than 2 goals a game.
No, but Brighton were memed for being,
they got banged 4 against United. I'm going to go 63.
They were. Thing is though, last season they were really memed for being, and even their like Twitter account kept replying like, "Here we are again" to the XG philosophy, because they would score 1 goal or something, but they'd have like 4 XG.
Of 3 or something.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go 54. I think, but I might be.
I think I'd agree with the 54, but if I'm honest, I don't know. I'm purely guessing. So let's see.
And also,
it was actually only 42.
42.
42.
Really?
There you go. Fair play.
And
Not exactly a lot of goals,
in answer to that question in the chat, when we're using the 3rd kit, we should be using it tomorrow.
I heard that as well, which makes sense.
Really?
Because as you can see on screen,
because
it's blue and white. So
it's blue and white away shirt, and we play in blue. So we should be wearing the 3rd kit tomorrow.
Yeah,
exactly.
True.
I was buzzing.
Might tweet that out actually. That's good.
Well, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but
no, but it makes sense, doesn't it?
It makes sense. I can't imagine
because the home kit doesn't work, the away kit doesn't work. So what do we have the 3rd kit for? Do you know what I mean? It's unfortunate. We will only play this away kit probably like 5-6 times all season, but this 3rd kit, sorry. But I love it. I'm a big fan. All right, let's get to the next question. Potter took charge of Brighton a couple of years ago, transforming them from Brighton to what? To
Brighton Colonia.
It's basically Barcelona. Is that what he's trying to say?
Yeah, I think so.
But why is Colonia? But anyway, Brighton, Colonia, Brighton, Colonia, whatever it may be. Question is, which Chelsea pair scored the first and the last goal of Potter's Brighton career? That he conceded. Oh, that's interesting. Sorry.
Well, I definitely know that Ziyech scored. Ziyech definitely scored last season at the Annex because he didn't celebrate at all and he looked pissed. So I think it's Jorginho and Ziyech because Willian was on air. So Jorginho and Ziyech for
Jorginho would have been Lampard's first game. Remember, Lampard's first game was away at Brighton. We won 3-1. The Reece James screamer.
That was the Reece James screamer. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jorginho, I think we started with a penalty from Jorginho that game. So I think with Jorginho and Ziyech, you might be right. Unless it's Willian Ziyech. But how long has Potter been there? I think Potter
because Ziyech has not been there at the same time as Willian ever has.
No, but that's the point, I think. Who scored the first goal against Potter for Brighton and who scored the last goal?
Sorry, I think these are assisting each other. Sorry. Yeah.
Because when did Potter join Brighton? Do we know that? Wasn't it 2019?
I think it is Willian and Ziyech. Let's go Willian Ziyech.
No, but when did they come into the Premier League, though?
They must have been here at least 3-4 seasons.
They've been in the Prem for a while, but Potter didn't get promoted with them, did he? He took them over in the Prem. So it wouldn't have been first time Brighton were up. It would have been when Potter was Brighton manager. Remember, he took over from Eddie Houghton. Is that his name? Not
No,
Eddie.
not Eddie Hughes and Chris Houghton.
Chris Houghton, that's it. There you go.
You was thinking Eddie Newton.
There you go.
It's definitely Ziyech. It just depends of whether it's Jorginho or Willian. Ziyech was definitely the last one. I think it could be Willian, to be fair.
Jorginho.
It could well be the case. It could well be the case.
Well, you go with that then. Let's see.
Jorginho and Ziyech. Yeah, I felt like it was a pen, but judging from that celebration, that wasn't at Brighton. That is at Chelsea. So, I had it all wrong in my memory. We just got lucky. But hey, here we are. Moving on to the next question. This fixture has seen its fair share of brilliant goals. How many goal of the month winners, bloody hell, have come from this fixture since 17-18?
There must be at least one. That James Screamer has got to have been a goal of the month, surely.
Yeah.
But they hate Chelsea, bro. They never give us awards.
I assume he's talking not just Chelsea goals. So remember when they scored the overhead kick against us on like New Year's Day? That might have
Jakambash. That was a fucking screamer, bro.
I reckon 2.
Yeah, 2's
and
got
the other one, remember when we beat them 4-0 and Willian scored that goal where it had like the back heels with Hazard and Batshuayi in the build-up?
Yeah, that's a good.
I think that would have won goal of
that should have been goal of the season, bro.
Let's go. I reckon 2.
I reckon you're still right with 2, and I reckon Reece James didn't win it for some reason because they probably gave it to some stupid Harry Kane goal or something. Or United goal, probably like a Bruno Fernandes penalty. I'll say 2. Pice, are you going to agree with our 2 or are you going to go for 3?
I'm going to go with 3 because I think I'm going to go with the Reece James shot.
All right. I think there's a dark horse that is 0 and they gave none of it, but we'll see. 2. To be fair, Handbacks and William. See, we even got them 2 right. Fair play to us.
The Reece James Screamer didn't even get in there.
No, they probably give it to like some top player.
Yeah, probably. That or like I say, a Bruno Fernandes penalty. Or maybe you remember when Bruno Fernandes scored that? Was it Bruno that scored it? That the great United goal, which was clearly from an offside position, and the goal stood anyway. And then they even gave a goal of the month. I'm like, how can an offside goal be goal of the month? No, it was Cavani, but assisted by Bruno. And I would never understand how can a goal that was offside be goal of the month. I will never understand that. But hey, here we are. Next question then. Before the inauguration of their new arena, the Amex, Brighton played at this monstrosity called.
It was called the Withdean.
Monstrosity. Why that word?
It was called the Withdean.
The Withdean. The Withdean. Yeah. Oh, mate. I mean, you could have used the bigger picture, Bertram. I can't lie, but
yeah, no, it's the Withdean. It was
probably the only available picture on Google.
Yeah, probably.
I can't lie. The Amex is a nice stadium. Like, it's not too big, but obviously for what Brighton are, I think it's a nice stadium. It's a nice stadium. Although the one time I went Brighton away, it was about the most miserable, most typically English day you would have ever seen. Like literally from a distance, you couldn't even see the stadium because everything was covered in fog. It was crazy. But yeah, there you go. I mean, Charlie basically already gave us the answer, but still, the options are McAllister Field, the Withdean, March Marshes, and Blundell Park. What's March Marshes? I feel like that's still a thing. It's just not their stadium. Is that a thing? March Marshes? I feel like I've heard that before. Maybe not. It sounds like some sort of horse racing place. Could that be?
Probably thinking of like Solly March, I reckon, bro.
That's a footballer. I'm not thinking of Solly March. I'm a fair play. Hey, who knows? Who knows? All right, but it is Withdean. I would have had no idea. Pies, would you have had any idea? Or
fuck knows. Some clubs I do know, like Norwich and stuff, but no, not us.
Fair play. Oh, see, we got some new pictures. It was right by the forest, though, to be fair. So not too bad. But yeah, it is a real monstrosity. I hope they didn't really go too high in that stadium. But hey, moved in 2014. Fair enough. All right then. Which current Brighton players has not scored for the Seagull against the Pride? That being Chelsea. Trossard, Webster, Dunk, or March?
I reckon Dunk.
Nah, Dunk must have scored.
March.
Surely not.
I think Solly March. I reckon Solly March.
Are you guys sure again?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you remember Trossard? No, I was going to say, do you remember? Yeah, but do you remember him scoring against us? Because I don't. I feel like you'd remember that.
I know Webster has.
Webster scored a header.
You know, I feel like March definitely scored. I feel like, and Dunk surely we've conceded from some stupid corner. We always concede from some stupid corner.
You know what? It might be Trossard.
So I'm gonna hazard against a Trossard. I can't lie more. Are you gonna stick with Dunk, Charlie? Or are you?
I'll stick with Dunk. Why not? It's probably wrong, but let's go with it.
And I'll go with March. because why not?
Okay. Oh, fair play, Charlie. You got spot on. Lewis Dunk has never scored against the Blues. And did you know, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, Lewis Dunk came from Chelsea Academy, or not sure Academy, but certainly a boyhood Chelsea fan anyway. So, fair play.
Isn't his dog called like Drogba or something? On
Sorry?
video. Dunk's dog is named after a Chelsea legend.
Yeah. Sorry, is it Frank, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's either John, but yeah, it's either one of them. Lampard, Terry, and Drogba.
Keep that up, though, please, Lewis. Don't score against Chelsea. We definitely don't need that to happen tomorrow, mate. All right, finally, the golden goal scorer. All right, okay, this one is against Man United. I thought you also always did this against...
That looks a little bit like... Could that be...
Oh, I know who this is. I know who this is. I know. Got it. If I'm wrong, I'm an idiot. I feel like I know who this is now.
Barkley.
Now, obviously, we're getting a little bit of a hint by seeing other players in the background who it then obviously can't.
It's not was Higuain here then?
Bro, I know who this is.
I mean, it's that season, yeah, but Higuain only joined in January, and that.
I mean, it looks a little. I don't know. I thought it might be in Pedro, but it looks a bit tall for him.
Can I say my shout?
Yeah, go on.
Rudiger.
Yeah. I thought it was Giroud.
Nah, Rudiger. Sure,
it's true. Would we ever have Morata and Giroud on the pitch at the same time?
Well, probably if we're.
I think we all remember the Barkley equaliser 96th minute when he kicked.
Yeah, I remember that. He just smashed it in.
To me, it looks like Giroud, but I could well be wrong. Who else could it be if not Giroud? Could it be like?
I'm sure it's Rudiger. I'm sure it is.
Are you sure it's Rudiger?
Yeah, it came straight to my head.
Well, let's trust Pice then on this one.
Okay, I'm gonna say Giroud, but just because I can't really think of anybody else who could be, if I'm honest. It was Rudiger.
It was.
It was.
Remember that well. Fair play. Well done.
It's just a celebration, bro. Like I remember that. He always puts his arm down, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's right. Definitely, the size of him was certainly a bit of a giveaway. Could have been Pedro for that reason, but yeah, there you go. And Falcao or Pato? No, unfortunately, Taylor, them two were not playing for Chelsea in that season. All right, boys, let's get into that team that we would like to see us field tomorrow. Now, so far, I've only taken the names of it and I've left the formation as it was, at least on the ball against Salzburg. Would you guys, by any stretch of the imagination, like us to do that again? Or would you like us to go for something slightly more conventional?
What have to be honest, what have they even been doing under De Zerbi? Have they changed much? I don't really know.
In the last game, they played a 4-3-2-1, or 4-3-3, whatever you want to call it.
I'd be more inclined to stick with this, but bring the wing backs back, so it's kind of more conventional wing backs than pushed really high up.
But in my opinion, when you play that with more conventional wingbacks, this is a very defensive formation because then you only have two real attackers. So that's why I'm like, we're still playing Brighton, who haven't won since since September. Do you know what I mean? Since the 4th of September, mind you. So that's why I'm not 100% sure about. But
it can always change over because you could, if you played a Mount, or I don't know, I keep pointing at the screen as if people can see. If you use like a player 6 or 7. Like you can still push that up and you can change it to a 3-4-3 anyway. Like it's not, you're not kind of stuck.
What about a 4-3-3? Or is that too attacking?
I don't know. We still go.
I mean, I wouldn't hate a 4-3-3, but we haven't really deployed a 4-3-3 yet, so I'm not really sure how likely we are to do it now.
It'll be a variation of the 3 at the back. It might be the 3-5-2, or it'll be a 3-4-3.
What about one winger, one wing back?
Yeah, that could work.
And obviously, we're still having Cucurella here. And if this is the winger, it auto shifts to a back 4 anyway. If this is
exactly.
But that is exactly the formation that he used at Brighton. So should we use that? Because that's probably the one they know best from his.
Yeah, but it's different players, though, isn't it?
It's absolutely. But they still know the patterns. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe we should go something different.
What about what we played against? What was it? Wolves. We did a 4-2-3-1. That's probably the best we've played so far.
No, that's the game where you think we played a 4-2-3-1, and I think we.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Yeah, we're gonna do this again.
It was quite literally this formation, actually. Just Hill had obviously Aspie in that game, and here was just Pulisic. Otherwise, it was basically this.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
mean, I think what we need to figure out first before because maybe certain players that we want to rest or leave in the team will kind of dictate what formation we want to go with, because we're obviously light in certain positions of the pitch. So maybe that will actually force us into it. So maybe rather than making a full decision on that yet, we should actually figure out who's available and stuff. Because now Koulibaly is still out injured. I touched on it earlier already. Zagreb might be possible for him on Wednesday, but I said this earlier already. Do I want him to play against Zagreb? Not really. Like, play fucking Lewis Hall or something in left centre back. Just like, you know what I mean? This is a game for nothing. Give them all a rest. I wouldn't even include a single first teamer even in the squad other than Mendy and Broja, obviously. Obviously, Chukwuemeka and stuff. Like, there's a few, but you get what I'm trying to say. But Thiago Silva wasn't in training yesterday. Was in training today, though, so probably just got an extra day's rest because he's, well, a bit old. But would you even, I mean, Pius, you suggested a back four anyway, but would you stick to the same, at least back three? Obviously, you could be back four with just adding Aspie, you know, and pushing it back. But would you stick to Cucurella, Thiago Silva, and Chalobah? Or would you throw, if it's a back four, then Chilwell in there instead of Cucurella? What would you like to see done with the back three? And then we'll do the goalie, or back four, obviously.
So just the centre backs to start with.
Basically, but if you want to push it into a back four, you absolutely can. Like, we've not fully decided that yet.
I'll stick with the three we've got on there. I'll go with. Oh, it's really. See, I wanted to go with Cucurella at wing back, but then I'm thinking, who the fuck plays left centre back?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Chalobah definitely plays.
Yeah, Chalobah, Silva are two guaranteed. But who's?
It's basically, if it's a back three, it has to be Cucurella, Thiago Silva, and Chalobah, because who else can play?
Yeah, but
I guess
that's
Aspie could be like in the back, but that's it.
For me, I don't really want Chilwell or Sterling on the left wing back, to be quite honest.
Play Pulisic there, and play Aspie.
Yeah, could do. Yeah, it's a shout.
I'd be a fan of it. Charlie, would you be a fan of that same back three and then Pulisic?
Yeah, I mean,
also because Charlie, not even now my criticism rant against him again. Just he's played a lot of games, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the lot of games argument. I would expect not that many changes, because on Tuesday night against Zagreb, not hardly anyone's going to play that's going to start or play in this game tomorrow.
Yeah. And so we had since Tuesday. I know it's tomorrow Saturday, but we had 1 day more than we did like last week.
Yeah, and it was the early kickoff as well. So that made a difference as well. So I wouldn't actually expect that much rotation in this game, really. Yeah, if it's going to be a 3, it's definitely going to be that. So yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Fair dues. All right then. Now, I think this would be a very odd one to all of a sudden change the goalkeeper, but are we all in agreement that Kepa stays in for this one, and we probably Mendy gets his game after finally against Zagreb? Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
There you go. Fair play. Pius, do you agree as well? Kepa for this one? Mendy for the
definitely.
next one? All right then. Now, I would be a fan of this. Now, Aspie, he will probably come in. Like I say, I would like to give Sterling a break. Again, my only worry about if we do this is that Brighton literally played this a lot under Graham Potter. That's how Trossard became a left wing back, because it is. So that's my only minor fear. Pius, do you see that at all as a maybe don't go for the one system that he played for the most part at Brighton, or do you think just play well enough and then that doesn't matter?
I think both could be true, to be honest. I don't know if he'll deep it enough to think, you know, I did this a lot here. Maybe let's just do something completely different. Maybe he will. I don't really know.
I mean, he would know how to beat their players the best. So Graham Potter will hopefully not do like what he did against Man United and get the starting 11 wrong. I bloody hope that he gets it right against a team he knows inside out. But I don't know either. I'd like to go for it at least on screen.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah.
There you go. And then you would agree with the Pulisic and Aspie ones, or would you like to throw in like a Ruben at right wing back potentially?
No, I think I'd give Aspie a game. I think he's actually been all right lately. Obviously prefer him coming off the bench, obviously. But like, I mean, if you can turn it into a 4, I think Aspie's probably more suitable as well.
Yeah, seems about right. Charlie, would you agree as well? Put Aspie over here, or would you like to see Ruben at right wing back?
No, to be honest, I think in fairness, Aspie, I can't believe I'm really saying this, but he's actually done all right the last few times he's played. He hasn't made any he's not been outstanding by any means, but he's not done anything necessarily really wrong. So, and I prefer to have Ruben in midfield, really.
Yeah.
So I probably would stick with Aspie there. The Pulisic one, I'm for it, and if we're playing this system, then he deserves to start, and there's not really anywhere else you can start him.
Yeah. I mean, it could be in the front too, I suppose, if you really wanted to. But we have Broja, who deserves game time anyway. So,
well, exactly. Let's go with that.
Fair dues. Now we get into midfield. We haven't fully. Are we even going to do a midfield 3, or will we, even with Pulisic on the side, would we want a 2? Because if we have a 3, we must play Jorginho, because Jorginho is the only one that's really suited to this deep role. I would say, at least. I don't think any of the others are suited.
By the way, I was just going to say, with Jorginho, he returned today, but I was told he missed training yesterday as well with Silva. So I don't know why, but he was out yesterday as well.
I mean, maybe he also just got a day extra off. Who knows? He's obviously
the thing is, though, like the reason why I posted it when I found out is because they actually had an open hospitality day and foundation day. So you were supposed to, everyone's supposed, like you ain't getting a day off because you're supposed to meet all like the kids and stuff. So I'm not sure why they were both.
I guess
off.
maybe lost treatment then on small niggles.
Someone even said maybe Silva was signing his 1-year extension. You know, I hope so.
Would be interesting, absolutely. But I mean, Jorginho probably not quite at the extension point yet. I mean, we're contract negotiations are supposedly starting or have started, whatever it may be. But on that note, then, Pice, do you think Jorginho will start? And if not, do you think we should need to shift it to a midfield 2?
Well, again, I don't know fully the reason, but
no, of course.
Yeah. No, I think Jorginho.
Shall we check how many games in a row Jorginho started now, just to have a bit of a?
He's so durable. Like that's the one thing people don't realize. Wasn't there a time where he played like? It must have been on the 2 call. He played.
But that was also then when we, by the end, said, "Oh, he's overplayed."
Oh yeah, but like he still like for the first like 8-10 games, he was ridiculous. I'm sure he played like 20 in a row or something stupid.
Yeah,
probably.
Well,
not
he did
quite
play
that
the
much,
last 3 in a row. He didn't start against Villa. He started Brentford, United, and Salzburg.
So I'd play Jorginho. I think there's been quite a few days.
Unless he has some sort of injury which we're not aware of, I think, especially if we're going to do a midfield 3, he's the only real valid option anyway, I guess. Charlie, would you agree then in that situation?
I think if you're going with the 3, then he's the obvious candidate to start there. And as Pi said, he's durable. He doesn't get injured that often, and he probably is not going to play Tuesday night. So
yeah, that's one thing we need to say. Like you said, like
we played Tuesday night because we played Wednesday this week just gone, haven't we?
No, we played Tuesday this week, bro.
Was it Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh shit, we played Wednesday then. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so he's gonna get basically a week off, so we might as well use him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right then, the 2 ahead of him. Do we all agree that Kovacic could probably do with the rest and hopefully actually be allowed to rest until at least the 60th minute and not have to come on after 15 for Gallagher, after 30 for Cucurella? Do we all agree that Kovacic should be rested? I'll start with you, Pice.
He should be.
No, I'd start Kovacic.
Okay, interesting. Fair
but because again, he's gonna get like a week off pretty much, isn't he? So
yeah, and he didn't come off with calf issues, by the way. He was just tired.
Yeah, I mean, Potter did say he felt tightness in his calf, though.
Yeah, then he said it. But in the conference today, he said it wasn't. He was just tired, so he got it wrong.
Yeah, probably like in terms of tightness in his calf for cramp rather than for muscle injuries, I suppose. And then it makes sense, obviously, with tiredness, doesn't it? Okay, fair enough. I mean, if you want to put Kovacic in there, well, I'll give you that, obviously, for the time being. Who would be the other one then? Would that be Ruben Loftus-Cheek, guys?
Ruben instead of Gallagher. Gallagher comes on for Kovacic at like 60, 65.
But you do realise that this team now has no Mason Mountain because he won't be in the front 2, will he?
Good point. I didn't realise that.
He's probably going to...
Instead of Cover, what do you think?
He's definitely Mount and Cover. I think Ruben on the bench for this one then.
Or does that maybe change your mind and you put Ruben at wingback? Oops.
I mean, I don't mind it, but I think we mentioned shift. If it is this, which no one knows if it will, but Ruben, like, he can't really play at the right back, can he? So
no.
No, I
Yeah.
think Mount and cover. Ruben can always come on, same as Gallagher. Make a lot of changes. Why not? Ruben's played a lot recently, I feel like, as well.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, he didn't start Salzburg while Kovacic did. But yeah.
I just think the thing is, like, if you start like a Ruben and Mount, or a Gallagher and a Mount, I feel like this is quite a big game for me. Like, I feel like you need your. I don't even know if we have a strongest 11, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather just go for. I don't know. We all got different opinions. I'd do cover and Mount.
Fair. Charlie, would you do cover and Mount? Would you put Ruben and Mount? Would you put cover and Ruben?
Things I
team as good as he was against Salzburg?
I mean, I'd love Gallagher to start again because I think he deserves it. He played really well. But having said that, I don't know.
Charlie, we could also do like Ruben or Kovacic even deep, and then that leaves more space.
Yeah,
Maybe
you could. I mean, you could.
Kovacic has never played the deep role on his own, though. Like not other than out of necessity. Not like when we had other options.
Nah, to be
fair, he can't
be
worse than Jorginho, bro. He's quicker, isn't he? So.
No, I probably would leave it as Kovacic and Mount. But if Kova's got rested, then I think he'd put Ruben in there. But I would like to see Gallagher given a go as well. But I just don't think it will happen.
I would play Ruben. I think Kovacic can do with the rest. I don't want to overdo it. I understand he will be rested against Zagreb. I'm very aware. But still, someone that's laboring with a knee injury, even if it wasn't an injury against Salzburg that he came off with and just maybe a cramp in his calf, I don't know. We already robbed him of his supposed rest that he was supposed to have against Brentford and against United. I'm like, well, at some point we need to give it to him. Ruben rested the last game, should be fresh. So therefore, I'm like, why not? Do you know what I mean? And I don't think, as much as Kovac's been amazing, I don't think the drop-off is that drastic where it's like, okay, that will be the decisive factor of winning or not. So I would go with that. But obviously, Kovacic is a very much so an understandable shout. All right, then. As for the front two. Do we think we stick with Havertz and Aubameyang then? Or does Broja get a start? Do we put Sterling in the front two? Charlie, I'll start with you. What will be your shout for the front two?
I don't know. It's tricky because whilst Havertz scored a great goal, I didn't think his game overall was that great other than the goal.
Did you think Aubameyang's game was great?
No, but I didn't think Aubameyang's game was great, and he's got to be putting those chances away that he missed. It's a tricky one. This, I mean, I'd potentially be inclined to go to see what Broja and Havertz look like.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I've been heavily critical of Havertz, and I'm now calling for him to start, but
it's also part of the formation, isn't it? This formation allows you less options for this position.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'd like to see Broja with Havertz kind of either up alongside him or playing just off him. I think that could be interesting.
Bro, I would pick it as well, if I'm honest. And I agree with you. Havertz wasn't amazing outside of his goal, but it was a good goal. And I think on the back of that, I would start him again just to hope that this instills some extra confidence and therefore he can now play much better. I think if you then now not play him, but if you only play him, say, against Arsenal again, by then that extra confidence from that goal against Salzburg is long gone. So if you want to use that, you've got to do it tomorrow, in my opinion. So I would agree with that front two. Pice, would you, number one, keep Havertz in the team? Would you like to stick with Aubameyang? Would you give Broja a chance? What would you do?
So for the one player, I'm going to go up front, exploiting those spaces in behind. I'm going to go with Sterling, which is going to surprise some of you. But
instead of Kai, though, instead of Broja.
Yeah, Sterling instead of Kai. Okay. I think this could be a really good game for him. And the other one I'm debating between Broja and Aubameyang. Now, basically just link-up purposes. Like, who do I think is best going to attract defenders and get into spaces, which then leaves Sterling in more space? Now,
yeah, that's why I would do it with Havertz, because I think Broja is stronger, but his touch isn't as good as Aubameyang's in terms of laying it off. So I think it would suit better if Havertz did the laying off to Broja. I think that could work the best in my personal opinion.
I want to give Sterling another go in a proper attacking area if we do this, though. Like, I think I don't know, and also
doesn't deserve another chance, but you can disagree.
you're not wrong, but I think if you start benching him now, he's gonna kill his confidence even more. So
I wouldn't bench him long term, but just like bench him for one. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, but he won't play against Thingy, and then who we got after that? So it's like
Arsenal. So against Arsenal, he'd play again. I'd probably say.
if I had to predict something, like if I was predicting, I think he's gonna do Sterling and Aubameyang if it's this. But for me, I would actually go with Sterling and Broja. I'd like to see that, but it won't happen. It will be Sterling and Aubameyang.
I think it will be Havertz and Aubameyang, if I'm honest. And I think Sterling will more likely play here, and Pulisic gets dropped again, unfortunately.
Why do you think Havertz will start out of curiosity?
Excuse me? Say the start of that again.
Out of curiosity, why do you think Havertz will start?
Just because I think Potter will try to build on the goal and try to give him confidence that way.
It's just interesting because again, he got asked about Sterling again today, and he said no, it's not his fault at all, and it's just we need to play better. So I feel like he's just going to stick with pretty much.
Yeah,
the same
I
thing.
agree with you. I think I personally think it's more like a starting place instead of Pulisic, but then he will play somewhere. I do agree, is absolutely very likely. Now we are basically done with the team now, but I think what we should quickly talk about, as we're kind of talking about Havertz anyway. I'm sure we've all seen them. I'm not going to get them up on screen because by the time I found them, we'll be flipping old. Laurenz loves pressuring people into agreeing with him. Do I? I do apologize if I do that. I just try to bring, because if I just let everyone say their thing without saying something back, we're just having separate monologues all the time. That's a bit boring. So that's why I'd rather build it into a conversation. And if they stick with their opinion, absolutely fantastic. HM says Chilwell is guaranteed to start. See, actually, I don't disagree. I don't think you're necessarily wrong that Chilwell is very likely to start. But if we're going to do this formation, then I don't see him start, because I really hope we're not going to do Aspie and Chilwell against Brighton. Do you know what I mean? It would be very, I don't know, just not exactly, just, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, thrilling. I don't know if that's the right word. But what I wanted to get to, and I'm not going to get it up on screen like I say, but I'm sure all of us have seen the Kai Havertz comments after the Salzburg game, where he's saying, and I'm paraphrasing, along the lines of, people have seen what I can do over the last 3 years. I'm an offensive player, not specific to one position. No matter the position I play, I try to get in the box and score goals, blah, blah, blah. Interesting. Very interesting. I'm not, maybe wasn't quite as harsh in my reaction as I saw Pice's tweet to it. It was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But even I'm like, and I
just said lol, and everyone just bricked me. And I was, everyone was like, shut up.
I could be wrong.
I just put lol to CFC Daily because I was just like, calm down, mate. Yeah, I just put lol.
Okay, fair dues.
I don't remember beefing with anyone. Maybe I did, but
it's a weird one to me, because I'm like, okay, on the one hand, I agree, back yourself. On the other hand, I'm like, bro, you had one good game, scored one great goal. Let's not act like you've been amazing for the last month, right? So I'm like, in general, I have no problem with players backing themselves while they're not discrediting anybody else, like no manager disagreements, no other player disagreements. But it just feels like a little bit of a weird timing. But I guess you can also see where players are just humans, right? The criticism, he will see it. It will get to him. He scores a great goal. He will feel a little bit of a, of rebellious side, and then we'll see, look at me now, like I proved you wrong type thing. So I understand where it comes from in him, but I still don't think it was perfectly timed, shall I say. Charlie, I mean, I allow Pice to expand more on his opinion in a second as well, but what did you think about it when you saw it? And because I know you obviously have been very critical of Kine for the past few weeks as well.
Of course, as you say, he's obviously going to come out and back himself, but I think to us Chelsea fans that aren't, his fanboys, as it were, it's kind of obvious that he's not delivered when he's been playing, regardless of what position he's been in. So I'd much rather him not really say anything and just perform on the pitch and let that do the talking, rather than saying, I can play in all these different positions and I try and get in the box and score as many goals. It's like, well, the evidence is not really backing up what you're saying.
Don't you think he was also a bit pissed when he scored, bro?
Sorry?
Like, for me, look, I watched it back a load of times. He looked like a bit angry, or just don't really care when he scored. Like, I don't know what it was about him. Like, he was just not really smiling or happy. Like, don't know, it's weird. And then he comes out with this. I'm like, maybe he's just reading a load of social media hate, and fair enough. Like, don't hate on players, but to come out and say like, you guys know what I can do. Well, it's 3 years down the line, mate, and
Yeah,
I
hope
don't
you
really
could
know
do
what you
more
can
than
do.
that. Because if this is apparently all you got, then we need to get rid in January. If you don't even think you can be better than this, man.
It's not even like me, like just me either. There was like, I think when Daily posted, there was like 300 quotes, and I was just sitting there reading through them. It was like all the same thing. Like, well, what do you do? Like, what, you know what I mean? What is it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're still finding your position, all that. So yeah, the timing was really weird, man.
Yeah, it absolutely was a bit odd. Don't really know what to think of it, but hey, here we are. Yash here asked in the chat, I mentioned it earlier, but when will Koulibaly return? Well, according to Graham Potter, this weekend, so tomorrow comes too early. Maybe he's involved against Zagreb. Otherwise, presumably, unless there's no setbacks, will hopefully be involved against Arsenal, which will be quite good because I think we could very much so do with him against Arsenal. But, boys, I reckon it's about time we finish this one off with a couple of score predictions. 9 games in under Graham Potter, no defeats. I think, what was it, 2 draws, 3 draws? 3 draws, Salzburg, Brentford and United. 7 wins. 6 wins, sorry, because tomorrow is only the 10th game. Can we make it 10 unbeaten, Charlie? And do we make it 7 wins out of 10? Or what do you reckon? What are you expecting?
I think we can certainly make it continue unbeaten. Whether we win or not, it's going to be tricky. I think whilst we're in this good form, I've got nothing to suggest that I can see Brighton beating us. We've obviously got to lose at some point. They've got to win a game at some point. So like it's gonna happen eventually. So I think it'll be close. I'm gonna go. I mean, I've said 2-1 a lot recently, but it's most of the games have been 2-1 or there or thereabouts. So I'm probably just gonna go with another 2-1 win.
Fair dues. Pice, what about you? You went for a few somewhat negative predictions recently. You're going to stick with that, or you're going to go positive?
I went with a draw, I think, against Salzburg. I thought they'd be a lot better than they were, and I didn't expect us to play that well. So that caught me by surprise. Now, Brighton, I don't know what. Like, I think the main thing for us is keeping Trossard quiet, because even with, their form, he's still scoring goals. So I think if we can do that, I'm going to go for a 3-1. And I think the third goal will be like late on when Brighton try and push for an equaliser.
Fair dues. No, in this, I often do like a different prediction after the guests have said theirs because I don't want to be boring and say the same one as someone else sometimes. But this time I actually had 2-0 in my head all the time. I don't know why. I know Brighton have on a very annoying occasion scored stupid goals against us, but it was that Welbeck last-minute equaliser last season, flipping Graham Potter at the time. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it could be. I'm going to go 2-0. I would be quite happy with 2-0. Obviously, if 3-0 or something would be even better. But I'm going to say 2-0. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to round this one out. Before you go anywhere, 2 or 3 things. Please do subscribe on your way out. That'd be massively appreciated. Smash the like button as well. Doesn't cost you any money or any time. And after you've done all of those things, go down into the description, click the link to Charlie's channel, subscribe to him, and then also click the link to Pice's website, chelseafc365.com, and check that out as well for all your latest Chelsea news. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.